Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Jazz's Land. Today we are getting another rendition of Hanging Out in the Hammock. This is going to be a summer reading recap. I know that summer doesn't technically end until like September 21st or 22nd, something like that, but it's basically over. I felt the brisk in the air. I felt the chill. I had to put on a little hoodie. I had to put on a little coat. So that means summer's over. Time to turn on Gilmore Girls. Okay. I have my iPad, so I'm going to be going through all the books I read in May, June, July, and August. 4 months of reading. Now, summertime, around June and July, I really was not, maybe just June, I really was not doing my best on my reading. So that's why I'm like, okay, I can just combine all of these together and just give you guys a summer reading wrap up. So that's what we're going to be doing. Okay. And I am going to be going in order of how I read these books. Okay, so starting with the first book that I read in May. Now, I don't have all of the physical copies because a lot of these books are audiobooks because I am an audiobook girly. I'm an audiobook truther. Okay, so if you hate audiobooks, there's the door. Actually, the door is that way. Anyways, so I don't have all the physical books, and also I also have library copies that I borrowed from the library, so I don't have that, or they were ebooks. Whatever, regardless of the situation, we are going to be going through all of the books that I read this summer. The first book that I read in May were from the Name Bearer series. I read the first and second of the Name Bearer series. So we have it's called The Flowers of Prophecy. That's the name of the series. That's what I read first. The first one was The Name Bearer, and the second one was The Follower of the Flowers. This series I really enjoyed. I thought it was interesting. I picked it up on Libby just randomly. This book follows a young girl who is unnamed, and she is the name bearer of her kingdom. And basically, the name bearer names the next prince. She gets the prophecy from the flowers. Hint the flowers of prophecy is the name of the series. Basically, tells the name bearer what the prince's name will be, and basically gives like a prophecy of how this prince will be, what's his like destiny, yada yada. But the flowers don't give her a name. They say that the one that the queen has birthed is not going to be the prince, and that there's another prince. Like, she has the responsibility of finding that prince and then giving him, and then coming back, bringing him to the flowers, giving him a name, and then he'll become prince. So basically, the flowers basically told her, oh, you got to commit treason. You got to commit treason, because everyone's like, wait, what do you mean he's not the prince? What do you mean the flowers didn't give you a name? It's never happened before. But of course it happens for my poor girl. See, mind you, she's a child. She's like, I don't know, she's young, maybe 6 or 7 when all of this goes down, maybe 8. I don't know. Some people help her because there's factions. There's people who believe in the the flowers and believe in the prophecy of the flowers, and there's people who are loyal to the queen. The first book was so good, um and I really enjoyed it. My only gripe was that I thought that they were actually going to like find the unnamed prince in the first book, and so that's what really propelled me into reading the second one, because I was mad tight. I was so upset when I got finished with the first one, and I was like, wait, like, where's the rest of it? And so I immediately started the second one, which is why I read these two books back to back. I really like the second one as well. Like, I really love the friendships and like the sisterhood and the relationships within these two books, within this series in general. I think that the author does a really good job at doing that. So the first one I gave a 3.75 stars, just because, like I said, it made me so mad at the end when I was like, oh, so it's just over? Like, I feel like the story wasn't complete and it was over. So that upset me. And the second one I gave 4 stars because I really enjoyed it and it had me captivated and like just on it, because I'm like, oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. And the only reason I didn't read the third one right after is because there was a hold on it. And so I couldn't get it immediately after I finished the second one. The next book that I read in May was A Master of Jinn by P. D. Jelly Clark. I loved this book. I absolutely adored it. I gave it 5 stars. P. D. Jelly Clark is literally becoming, is really getting up there for me as an author, as one of my favorite authors. I've read, I feel like maybe three or four books by them at this point, and every single one of them has been bangers for me. I think I like the humor. I think that they're so witty, and it's my kind of humor, so I love it. I think that they're interesting. The concepts are always interesting and new, and I think that they do a really good at storytelling and keeping the audience engaged. Audience being me, engaged. Oh yes, Master Jin follows this woman who's working in the Ministry of Alchemy. It's called the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. So basically, this you in this universe, in this world, magic is real, and magic and Jin and all of these people, they exist, and they live side by side with humans. And so her job is to basically keep the peace. But then there's someone comes back and they're impersonating um the master of Jin, who was like this, I don't know, this figure. A lot of like the Jins, the Jins of this time, they worship him, they saw him as king and yada yada. So basically he comes back and murders a bunch of people. And so people are like debating, like, oh, is this really him? Is he really this powerful? Should we be worried? Yada, yada, yada. And basically, it's her job to figure out what's going on, to capture this impersonator, or to find out if this person is really who they say they are. And so it's like a mystery in that aspect, but it's the world building, the magic system is so good, so interesting. And I loved it. And I love it. And I love all the little characters that they had. Yeah, P.D. Jelly Clark definitely becoming a top tier author for me. The next book I read was The Bewitching Hour. I think I might have read this out of order because I think this might be the second book. I didn't really like it, to be honest. Thought it was pretty decent for what it was. It didn't, nothing to write home about, nothing special, nothing interesting. It was just a book that I read. I genuinely don't even remember too much about it. That's how you know that I did not love it. And it's not super memorable. Sorry, Ashley Poston, The Bewitching Hour. um I was really hoping for like a very like witchy like story. I like those, but this to me was a little watered down and it didn't do it for me as much as I wanted it to. Next, I read Nikki Chambers Shakes It Up, and it's a romance, and it follows this lady. She's a teacher and she gets a job at a bar, and basically what ends up happening is her boss, the owner of the bar, ends up being one of her students. And so that's the romance is between these two people. And so you have like that like power struggle of like, oh, like I shouldn't be, dating someone who is, who's my employee, who I hired, who works with me. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't date one of my students, even though he's way older than her. He's a silver fox, if you will. But it was just like so funny. It's a grumpy sunshine story. They are so cute. I love the banter. I thought it was so adorable. I thought it was sexy. Like there's some scenes I'm like, just be with him. Just be with him. I don't know why she was trying to be like, oh, student, let's wait till the end of the semester, yada yada, woo woo. It was very, very cute. I gave this one 4 stars because I loved it. I love a book where the two characters just want each other so bad. Like they both wanted each other so badly, and they were really trying to hold out. Next, we have, and this is the last book of May, is Somadina by Akweki Emezi. I love Akweki Emezi. I am Akweki Emezi stan. They are the author for me. Okay. And so I got Somadina as soon as it was released. This is their newest YA fantasy book, and I love all of their other YA fantasy, Pet, Bitter, love them. So obviously I had to get Somadina, and I read it and I loved it. Thought it was so amazing. Actually, I have it right here. I thought it was so amazing. I pre-ordered this book when it was like first announced. And so when I got into the mail, it was like a special little treat. It was like a little treat. And it follows these two twins. Everyone in this town or neighborhood gets a power when they become of age. They get a power. So Medina and her twin are kind of weird. So one, they stopped developing. They grew tall, but they didn't, essentially go through puberty. Then her brother goes missing. Something happens, something devious and terrible and scary happens. And um her brother goes missing. So Medina has to go on this journey to find her twin brother, and she realizes a lot of things about herself, about her powers, about what she's meant to do along this journey, and how her brother is also, a part of this. And Okweki's storytelling in this book is done so well, and just I loved it. I thought it was just so sweet. I love a sibling, story with like a deep relationship, because it's like they're twins, so they've always felt like they've had like this very deep connection. And then so when their powers finally do like come in, it there's a the twins, because they have a deep relationship, their powers are also deeply connected. And there's a lot that goes on in this book that surrounds like these two, kind of like a yin and yang kind of thing. And I thought it was lovely. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was lovely. That was May. So now we're going to move on to June. June was a rough reading month for me. June was a rough reading month. I was too busy living life like it was a dream, being in the summer sun. So the only thing that I read in the month of June was actually a short story, which I read for Short Story Club, which I've spoken about on this channel before. I'm part of a short story club. And so the story for that month was called A Tiny Feast by Chris Adrian. Now, it's only 15 pages long, and it was a very like cute but sad story. And it follows these two fairies. So these two fairies fall in love. They kidnap a human baby. They fall in love with the human baby, and they're raising this human baby in the fairy world and giving the baby everything that, the baby wants. And then the child develops cancer. And so we're following them as they're going through the journey of figuring out that their child has cancer, and that he's basically sick, and all the way through like the progression of like his sickness. And it's just so sad. There's disconnect, because one, they're not human, so they don't understand fully. They're like, what do you mean our child is sick? Like, little boys are meant to play. They talk about being in like the children's ward and like in the hospital, and how, they put up like these pictures and stuff to try to make it feel warmer, but it's still very cold, and it's sad, and like just it was very, very sad, but it had like it's like whimsy to kind of bring it back up. But it's overall, it's a very, very, very sad story, and it was super interesting and a great discussion piece. I mean, we spent a lot of time like talking about it, talking about the symbolism in it. This was like a perfect short story for me, in the sense that it went through the whole progression. I didn't feel like, wait, no, I want more. Like, no, it did its thing. That was June. That's literally the only book that I read in June, and it wasn't even a book. We have July. So I read 6 books in July, going in order of what was read first. I started with The Ballad of Jacot Delahaye by Brianni Cameron. This follows a mulatto pirate. It just follows her entire life. Her father is a white man, and basically he's involved in some suspicious things. And so the governor of the town where they're living in decides to frame her father. And when she doesn't go along with it, even though her father is not the best to her, and her mom was a slave. What? So she's not with that. She's like, yo, I know my daddy not the best, but like he didn't do all of this, and like so basically when that doesn't work out for her, then she kind of has to go on this journey of like trying, of just basically being on the run, and encountering all of these different people. She gets onto someone's boat, works her way up, has to kill them, becomes captain. Like, sorry, these are spoilers, but So much stuff happens in this book. Like, it's crazy. I didn't give it a rating just because I was kind of in a slump. So after June of like not reading any books, trying to come back into reading was really hard. And so this book, reading it was slow going for me. Was it my favorite book? No. But was it horrible? Absolutely not. Like, it was a cool like pirate story and I liked that aspect of it, but next was another short story that I read for Short Story Club. This was July's short story club pick, and that was Blood Child by Octavia E. Butler. If you've read Blood Child, then you know. You're on like this alien planet. And on this alien planet, the aliens who inhabit it basically use living things to implant their eggs into, and that's what like births their, and when their eggs are birthed, they burst through whatever it is, and that's how they continue on. That's how they procreate, right? So when humans come to uh this alien planet, and the humans left Earth because they were being persecuted for whatever reason they left Earth, they came to this alien planet, and the aliens start to realize, they're like, oh, if we implant humans, like our babies, we get more babies that survive. They come out bigger, stronger. So they're like, obviously, let's use humans. And the humans are like, wait, what? They form an understanding with each other where it's like, okay, every human family gets one of these aliens. I can't remember what they're called right now, but they get one of them, and like every generation, they pick one person from the family who will, you know, procreate essentially with these aliens. And normally they choose one of the men in the family because women have to make babies, make more human babies. They want to continue that. And if you read the afterword, Octavia Butler talks about just wanting to write a story in which men are pregnant, where men get pregnant. I was really uncomfortable. To me, it and she says that it's not a story about slavery, but it feels like a story about slavery. I feel like it was about slavery. She I feel like it's about grooming because he had to watch someone else go through the process of birthing these eggs. And he's like, oh my God. He also feels like a kinship because this has been generations. He's been raised with this alien, and he has like he feels a kinship with them. He feels close to her, but it's also like it's a little icky. It's a little icky, and it was a super uncomfortable read. And after I finished it, I was just like, also a great discussion time. It was only 31 pages, but there's so much to talk about. So much to talk about when it comes to that one. I didn't give it a star rating either because I didn't know how to feel. I read it. Next, we have Blood Justice by Terry J. Benton Walker. This is the sequel in the Blood Debts series. I read Blood Debt like a while ago, and Blood Justice was available on Libby, so I was like, oh, let me go ahead and read this one. And honestly, I thought it was fine. I don't have too much to say about it. Like sometimes I felt like I loved it, other times I felt like, uh, uh, But again, this is also during my reading slump era, so it's like it was really hard for me to get through books. And then when I got through them, I just wasn't really feeling very appreciative of the books after I finished them either. So it was hard. It was hard. Basically, her getting her lick back, and I love a story like that. Some parts I found a little boring. Some parts I love. So that's why it got a solid 3 stars from me. Next, I read Next of Kin. I'm not going to go into detail on it because this was in my first reading vlog that I have on my channel. So Next of Kin is a romance. I gave it 3.75 stars. I thought it was interesting. It's extremely fast-paced novel. It goes right into the story, but it could do better in a lot of like the important quote unquote important conversations. I feel like weren't actually shown in the book. It was just like, oh yeah, we talked about it and now everything's cool, which is kind of crazy. But that definitely helped me get out of my slump because it was a very quick paced book. It was cute and I enjoyed it. So that's Next of Kin. Next, I read I Got Abducted by Aliens and Now I'm Trapped in a Rom Com. This is also in my vlog, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. But I love Kimberly Lemming. I will always, forever, and ever be a Kimberly Lemming stan. This is probably my favorite Kimberly Lemming book that I've read so far. And it was so sexy. If you're looking for something that is like very slutty, like if you're vanilla, stay away. Stay away from this one. But if you really want to get in there, yes, yes. And lastly, in the month of July, I read Between Friends and Lovers, and I gave that 5 stars. Great romance. It's in my vlog. You should watch it. So this was like a love triangle kind of thing, and I thought it was so good the whole time. The male main character, he's definitely up there, my top favorite book boyfriends. I loved him. I thought he was such a good cookie. I'm going to leave it at that because I talked a lot about it already in my vlog. So you can go and watch that. You can go and watch that. Those are all the books for July. Lastly, we have the month of August. August was a great reading month for me. I finally was out of my slump. July got me out of my slump. And so I read 9 books in the month of August. So my short story read for the month of August was called The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Follows this woman is going through postpartum depression and she gets put into a room that has this hideous, ugly ugly yellow wallpaper, and then she becomes obsessed with it basically and spirals and goes insane. It was written 1892, so it's a super old, super classic piece. When I first read it, I was just like, but after the discussion and, breaking down all the symbolism and stuff with my short story group, I definitely bumped it up. It's not like my favorite story ever, but it definitely got bumped up in the list. Again, great discussion starter, great discussion starter. So the way that this story ends is very abruptly, but I thought it was hilarious. Like, I don't want to tell you guys because I don't want to like spoil it, but the ending was just so funny to me and I was just like, exactly. I'm like, did she go crazy or did they make her crazy? Mm. Next was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Now, this was recommended to me by a friend. She was like, oh my gosh, you have to read Dark Matter. Da, 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 da. This is not something that I would normally pick up because I'm not a super sci-fi girl, even though I read a lot of fantasy. So it's like 1 degree removed. But if you get it, you get it. I read Dark Matter and I gave it 3.75 stars. I thought it was pretty good. My only issue with it was like I felt like the beginning was very, very slow. Now, while there was things happening, like don't get me wrong, like there are definitely things happening in this book, but to me, it was so obvious as to like what was going on. I wanted the main character to be on the same page as me because like I was already there. I'm like, okay, obviously this is the thing that's happening to you. And it's like he's still like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what's going on. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, can you get there? Like I wanted him to be on the same page as me so we could go to the next step as figuring out what we're finna do. And then so once he did, and then we got into like the next step, I thought it was really good and I thought it was really interesting and I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's not a book that I would normally pick up, but I think it was done really well. And it does have a TV show, so I might watch the TV show. I think it's on Apple. Next, I read Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin. If you've seen Little Shop of Horrors, and you're familiar with the plant from Little Shop of Horrors, it's basically that, but told from the plant's perspective. So the plant is the narrator for most of the book. So creepy. It was so eerie. It is a horror and it gives that like the plant is so creepy and so scary. There was like literally scenes in this book where I was getting the heebie jeebie. A lot of like the descriptions in the book were but I still loved it. I gave it 4 stars because I thought the book was so well done. I feel like I read this book so quickly. I don't know, maybe a day maybe a day or two to read this. Next, I read The Golden Spoon. Me and my boyfriend were supposed to buddy read it, but he finished it like way before me because I just got caught up in other things. The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell is a murder mystery. Oh, and I also talked about this a little bit in my reading vlog, but I didn't finish it in my reading vlog, so I can discuss with you guys a little bit more here. So The Golden Spoon is a murder mystery and it follows a baking show, and it's a play off the Great British Baking Show. There's 6 contestants and basically someone dies, but we don't know who's died and we don't know who is the murderer. And so we follow these 6 contestants throughout the story. So I was suspicious of this one character, to be honest, and I was wrong. But I also wasn't that wrong. I knew who was gonna die. I was like, obviously this person is dead. I thought the mystery plot was good. I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, you guys just blew my mind. I'm so shocked that this actually happened, yada yada woo woo. But I also wasn't like, oh, it was so obvious. Da, da, da. I felt like it was a very good pace and a very good plot. And I would recommend if you're into murder mystery. I gave it 3.5 stars. Great book. Next, I read Scorched Grace by Margot Delany. And this is another murder mystery. And I gave it 4.25 stars. Scorched Grace follows a nun, but she used to be a way different person, but then after her mom died, she decides to join this convent. The convent catches on fire and then someone dies. They fall out of the building in flames and die. And so she's like, well, obviously I have to solve this. I thought it was kind of slow in the beginning. I was waiting for something to happen, but then when it picked up, it was like boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh, okay. Sister Holiday, that's the main character's name, is a badass. I got this book off of Pinterest because it had a badass nun, and she was 100% a badass nun. Her inner dialogue is so interesting because she's also a queer nun, which is like very important to the story. Is like she's also queer, and she is not using religion to hide her queerness. She'll tell anyone that she's queer because of her past, which I don't want to tell you because it just know it's like the fuck? And they allude to it in the beginning, but at first I thought I just missed something. And I was like, okay, because I don't want to give too much. I do not want to give too much. But that was such a great story, very character driven, which normally I don't really like. But if I really love a character, then obviously I can do a character driven story. And I think that the author did this very, very well, and I loved it. Next, I finally read the 3rd book in the Name Bearer series in this month. I read The Daughter of Dan Ray, which is the 3rd in the Flowers of Prophecy series. I keep saying the Name Bearer series, but it's the Flowers of Prophecy series. I think there's still another book to go after. I thought it was a trilogy, but it's not because when it ended, it still wasn't over. And this author, Natalie Hernandez, it's like, why does she always do this to me? Why do I always think, okay, we're done, but we're never done? It's never over. And I gave it 3.75 stars. I thought it was really good. I love the relationships in the book. It's just not 5-star worthy. It's like it's great read and I would recommend it to other people, but I'm just like, it's not like my favorite book ever. It's not something that I was thinking about after I closed it, No. But was it a great story? Was it told well? Was it interesting? Was it captivating? Yes. Next, I read Black and Blues, How Color Tells the Story of People by Imani Perry. 5 stars. 5 stars. She did her big one. Imani Perry did her big one with this book. She's basically telling Black history through the vision of color, through the vision of the color blue, and how blue has been a part of Black history from the beginning. Not just the color blue, but also blues, like the music blues. So in like a literal and figurative sense, blue has been a part of Black history and how blue is incorporated into it. And it's just so good. I don't have the physical book, but I will be getting the physical book and I will be rereading the physical book and I will be annotating and taking notes. I have to read it again. Like once was not enough. Once was not enough for this one. 5 stars. Next, I read The Paladin's Hope and I talked about this in my last vlog as well. I thought this was my favorite book in the series of the Saint of Steel series by T. Kingfisher, and it actually made me more excited to read the next one, which I can't say for the first and the second book. They didn't make me like, oh, I have to read, the next book, but this one did make me feel like that. So I think that's, big ups for Paladin's Hope. The last book that I read in August was I Who Have Never Known Men. I also read this in my last vlog, so I'm not going to go into super detail. I didn't give it a star rating because I was just like, I finished it and I didn't know how to feel. When I don't know how to feel, it doesn't mean the book is bad. It just means that it took me through a lot. It took me through the ringer. Okay, it took me through the ringer. So, I Who Have Never Known Men is a super interesting speculative fiction, dystopian story, and it will leave you questioning. It will leave you questioning. Like, if you're looking for answers, no, this is not the book. If you're looking for questions, yes, pick it up. That was the last book that I read in August. That was my summer reading recap. I read a lot of books. It was tough in June. In July, it was really tough. I was really fighting back against my slump, and also just being like super busy. When summer comes around, everybody want to do something. Everybody want to go out. Everybody want to party now. So that puts me behind my reading schedule, and it's so rude. Thank you guys for watching. I had such a great time hanging out in the hammock with you guys and going over books. Please like, share, subscribe, come back and watch the next video. Comment below a do a little leaf in the comments if you've watched this whole entire video, to let me know you watched it and to signify that fall is here. Basically, it's knocking at the door. Fall is knocking at the door. So go ahead and get on a nice little jacket, chill out with me, because we're going to be here all fall. This is really the time for reading. Ah, stay beautiful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.